Me and four kids from Angel Grove found a spaceship buried underground.
What?
Hello and welcome to episode 154 of Popcorn and Prosecco, a show that's all about talking about movies. I am Perri Nemiroff, and here are my co-hosts, Kristy, Puchko, and Angie Han.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
So this is basically the episode that I've been waiting like a really freaking long time for, because I'm super excited about both things we're talking about. We're going to do a mini review of the movie Raw, which had a limited release, and then we also have our big review of Power Rangers, which I can't wait to get to. But first up, Raw. Kristy, you are introducing that one.
I am. So, Raw is a French film from Julia Ducournau, and here is its IMDb plot synopsis. When a young vegetarian undergoes a carnivorous hazing ritual at her vet school, an unbidden taste for meat begins to grow in her. That's accurate. It's wonky. It's basically about a vegetarian girl who, in hazing, gets covered in blood and is asked to eat some raw animal bits, and it awakens in her cannibalism ability and well drive. And it's interesting because it's basically a coming of age story told through her need to eat meat.
To eat people meat.
Yeah, but it's like that's not that she doesn't get there immediately. Like there's a progression. It's not like zombies or something where she's like, "Oh, I need human meat." It's like it's something that comes about in a way that I find very natural and creepy. I'm a big fan of this movie because I think what it does with the horror genre is really special and interesting because it's like you hear teenage cannibal, and I feel like you might think midnight movie, you might think like ghoulish gore right off the bat, but this is like way more subdued and restrained, and I think it's just a very poetic and chilling film that's on the surface about cannibalism, but deeper down it's about kind of a girl coming of age and figuring out her sexuality.
Yeah, honestly, that was one thing that really surprised me. Like, it's such a grabby hook. You're like, oh, it's a teen cannibalism movie, and I'm just like, shit, yeah, okay, I'm in. But I came away really surprised at what a good coming of age story it is, and specifically, it's a story about what it feels like to leave home and become your own person for the first time. And I feel like, it's one of those things that when you watch the movie, it seems like you're just like, oh yes, okay, this all makes sense. But it's crazy to me that someone was like, I want to tell a story about what it's like to go to college and I figured out how I'm going to do it. I'm going to use cannibalism, but it captures that feeling better than almost any other movie I've seen. I'm serious. Like it just that feeling of kind of like going somewhere, realizing that everything that you've kind of learned your whole life is like to be questioned. Is not in like a paranoid way, but just in a way where you're like, oh, I realize I've been living my entire life one way because that's all I knew, and now I'm going to kind of see who I am and what I need to do for myself. Like I thought it did that really well. The relationships in this are also like really well drawn. Like she has these very specific relationships with like her sister and like her classmates and her parents and everything. Like it's really just it's a gorgeous movie and it's a little bit disgusting, but I think I I feel like it's not so disgusting that I'm gonna like warn people away from it.
Right. It's
Yeah.
disgusting in a way that Perry appreciates instead of Wetlands where Perry ran away screaming.
Yeah, pretty much. Every single time I bring up this movie, I keep hearing from people, oh, that's the one where people fainted at TIFF, isn't it? And yeah, there's definitely some gross bits in this movie, but I don't think it's of that level at all. And, folks who are going into this expecting to see some gross out horror or, cannibalism in the way that we have seen in things like Walking Dead or super popular shows and movies like that are going to be super surprised because one of the best parts about this movie is the coming of age elements and just how you can oddly relate to someone discovering her need to eat human meat. I mean,
Look, we've all been there. Let's not act like we're so above it.
yeah, really. The stuff with going away to college, it hits home hard. And her relationship with her sister, I mean, it's not that it mirrors my relationship with my own sister in any sense whatsoever, but just the connection the two of them have and the way that they work through certain problems that she's having. It's just that relationship felt so real, and I was rooting for them, and I was rooting for this family. And what's the name of the character that's her roommate?
I don't remember her roommate's name.
Oh,
Sorry,
I
it's
can't.
been a bit.
But I really, I loved him in the movie, and their relationship I found to be, just fascinating because I never really knew where it was at. Yet something about him was radiating warmth, and I knew that that was a comfort zone for her. Yet then it's just a very nice back and forth there. And this movie kind of exceeded my expectations in so many ways. I would be shocked if this didn't wind up being one of my favorite movies of 2017.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I really loved it. There's one scene with a hairball that for me was really hard to
Yeah.
watch.
That was probably the most like, gag worthy kind of moments.
I think that's the most disgusting and like most upsetting. Like the one
Ugh.
that was the one scene where I was just like, oh god, now I see why some people were like, fuck no, I'm peacing out of this movie.
And that's the thing that I think is interesting. The horror in those moments is based from a really real place, and you're just like, ugh, nope, I'm not okay.
Is it
I'm
real?
not okay.
How often have you coughed up hairballs, Kristy? I don't think it's that real.
It's gross. I like thinking of it now. I'm getting very uncomfortable. Anyway, but yeah, no, I think it's a really beautiful film. I think it's really interesting. I think if you're going into it for gore and horror, you're going into it for a reason it's going to disappoint you, because that's not what this is. This is something different. It's something a little artsier. I think it's better than people are expecting.
That's the
So
cool
I say
thing,
seek
though,
out
for
Raw.
people who are going into it expecting gore and just gross out horror. I feel like even though they might not get what they were expecting, they're still going to be pleasantly surprised because the other elements are just so good.
Totally.
And I mean, we should probably wrap up, but before we go, I just want to say I cannot believe this is her first feature, and I can't wait to see what she does next.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. It's amazing. So look for Raw.
Yeah, go find Raw. Can't recommend that enough. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but it looks like this episode might have two movies that I would be surprised if they didn't wind up being my favorite of the year.
I don't know what to do with this. Okay, go ahead.
The second one is Power Rangers. Here's the IMDb synopsis. A group of high school kids who are infused with unique superpowers harness their abilities in order to save the world. Accurate, but does not even scratch the surface of what makes Power Rangers special. Obviously, I have to point out the obvious first off, and that's Power Rangers was super special to me as a kid. This was probably one of my favorite 90s franchises where I just watched the crap out of the show, and I loved it. I had all the costumes and all the toys, and when they announced a new Power Rangers movie, I was shocked and I was scared. I didn't want them to ruin something that I love so much. I didn't really understand how they could
I had never heard you talk about Power Rangers until like a week ago. I'm not calling into question.
Yeah.
I'm just astonished because, like, okay, for those listening, Perri, Angie, and I are pretty close in age. Angie and I are a little bit older, but it's moments like this from like, right, Perri, you were just like on that cusp.
Yeah.
I feel like I was just barely too old enough to like Power
Same.
Rangers that much, like when it finally became
I
really
knew it
big.
was a thing, but I was a little too old to watch
I was
it.
like at the sweet spot. Like my entire childhood was basically Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, and Legos. But Power
the other
Rangers
two I
definitely.
was in on, yeah.
I used to love it, and it was not going to be easy to have a movie that I think appealed to wider audiences who are itching for, darker and more grounded superhero type stories while still embracing that extreme camp that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers had. Because when I say extreme camp, like, there is no way that something like that could work nowadays because it's too much. But I think Dean Israelite, the director of the movie, just did such a perfect job of finding moments to give it that. Like there's certain shots that mimic the camera work in the original, and like you would never notice where it would never pull a non-fan out of the movie whatsoever. But if you see it, it's like the slightest thing that gives you chills and makes you laugh and want to clap. There's just so many things that I loved about this. I mean all the
yeah, Angie is like making fun of my face right now. I'd never even occurred to me that they were making cinematography references. But again, like I was aware of the shows, but like the most one I watched was Jungle Force because I had a friend who was on it. So I like dutifully watched that.
I didn't last long. I was strictly Mighty Morphin. I've dabbled in the other series
original
since,
90s
but
series.
yeah, I'm very much an OG Power Rangers fan. But all of the characters in this, I couldn't believe. I'm not going out of control here and saying, oh, Power Rangers is an Oscar-worthy movie. I'm just saying that but like, I've kind of run into that issue because on Collider, we do scores and stuff, and I rated Logan very high, and I rated Power Rangers very high as well, but not so close to Logan, so I feel like some folks just have a hard time figuring out, well, how can you give that, and then this, that? It's not the same, but exactly, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And
it's about what they're attempting to accomplish.
Yeah, I love this movie so much just because it hit all the right notes for me as a longtime fan, yet I still think that this edition of Power Rangers can stand on its own, and I was lucky enough to go to the premiere Wednesday night, but I also saw a public screening of it yesterday, and I could feel half of that theater was kind of like me, and they were flipping out at all those right moments when all those little Easter eggs were hidden around. Then there were a whole bunch of kids around me too, being like, I like the blue one. I want to be the pink one. Look at the pink one's thing. Look at the yellow one. And it's like that kind of is the Power Rangers bubble I wanted to be in when I saw this movie in theaters. I'm so excited. I really hope that this thing has some legs. It has an A on Cinema Score right now. I want it to make all the money so I could see more of them.
Angie, I want to know what you thought about this.
I'm not like, as we've established, I was never like into Power Rangers. I saw the odd episode when I was a kid because it was on all the time. But like I never like got invested in the fandom or the mythology or anything. And then when I saw this, I didn't really have expectations. Like they weren't high, they weren't low. It was just kind of like, okay, it's a movie that I'm gonna watch. Sure, why not? And it's not a it's better than I expected. I don't think it's like a great movie, but it's too long, and like the tone kind of like shifts all over the place, and the characters never really transcend their archetypes. But at the same time, I was like, it does some like weird, interesting things. There are good character moments, and one thing that I really appreciated about the movie is that we've seen so many movies that are like, we've got to like get a team of like heroes together to like fight evil. And the way so many of these movies do it is that you meet them in the first act, and then we dive into a really long third act, and they're all like swearing their undying allegiance to each other, and it drives me nuts because it feels so unearned most of the time. And it's a problem that's plagued everything from like Suicide Squad to Rogue One. So it's not even
And
just
you said
like
Life. Even we saw Life this week, and you said the
it's
same
not
thing.
even just like, oh, this only happens with terrible movies. Like I liked Rogue One a lot, and it still had that same problem. So one of the things I really appreciate about this movie is that it spends a lot of time establishing the relationships between the characters. Like, as much as I don't think the individual characters themselves are that exciting, I really enjoyed like seeing them together, and like I enjoy that the movie goes out of its way to build up that camaraderie so that it becomes really central to the story and central to the like it's really the emotional hook of this movie is just finding these people like come together and like start to really like care about each other. It's very like kind of Breakfast Clubby, I guess, in that way. I still think the idea of a public school opening on Saturday for detention is like, I'm like, I don't think that's a real thing, but okay, sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like if I think too long about the characters, they don't totally work for me because like the main character who the Red Ranger, like his whole thing is that he pulled off a really stupid prank that like fucked up his knee in his football career, and I never understood why he even did it.
It was the bull thing. That's what fucked up his football career, wasn't his knee?
No, I understand, but I don't. Well, he also injured his knee in the crash.
Yeah.
But,
oh, right, but they were all related.
Yeah, but I don't understand why he did the prank to begin with. Like, that seems like a big motivational thing that they never touch on.
It's a very valid question, and then having seen it a second time now, there's certain little things that I'm like, oh, like, I'll just buy it and go along with it because I think the movie was paced so well and it had so much energy to it.
Point.
But like that point is then they go back to it later in the movie where it's like, oh, like I make brash, dumb decisions sometimes. So I don't know. It kind of tied it together for me.
My argument is that these characters are kind of weak sauce, but I do like them together because I do think that they're weak sauce. Because even the Pink Ranger, and I won't get into her big reveal, but she reveals like why she's been kicked out of the popular kids thing, and I was like, what you did is horrible. Like it's a super shitty thing, and she like sort of owns it, but then in the end the girl that she like betrayed gets like a shitty moment, and she's like, ha ha, and I'm like, no, you still were wrong. So there's like some things in this that are like, if I'm being really like talking about character, where I'm like, wait, what? But I'm pleasantly surprised by the fact that I didn't give a fuck about Power Rangers growing up. I didn't really care about this movie. I had to go see it first thing on Friday because I missed the press screening. So I went to a 9:30 in the morning screening, and there were like 10 people there. Some dudes, I would say around my age to a little older, which I did not expect. And like a couple people brought kids. Like there were 3 children in this screening. And then like some dude who was like in his 60s, and I don't know if he was just like, it's the first movie showing today. I don't know what was going on. So it was a weird vibe to see it, but I quite enjoyed it. Like, it's fine. I think that the story they tell is fun, But honestly, guys, I'm here for Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa.
I'm so glad you
Mhm.
liked her, because that seems to be most of the people that I've spoken to, because obviously I can't shut up about this movie and I've asked everyone what they think. Most of the biggest divide seems to be on whether or not Elizabeth Banks worked and
Wait,
whether she
the
was playing it
vibe?
too
Really?
over the
Everybody I
top.
talked to loves her
Great.
because she's super campy, and that's what you need.
I've heard either people love it or hate it. I think
Who hates it?
I think she's the main
Name
reason
names.
that
Who
the
hates
movie works on both levels. That it embraces Mighty Morphin Camp, but it also works as like
there's
a
like a whole
breakfast
sequence where they say
Club real
Krispy Kreme
grounded.
like 15 times. Like in moments like that, I said in my review, what I thought was interesting is that they actually dig into the characters and try to give these kids some teen angst you can relate to. Like in whatever terms, every one of these kids is seeking for their identity and who they are. And so through the Power Rangers, they kind of discover that. And I thought that was nice. I thought that was neatly done. And I like myself some Degrassi, so on board with it. Cool. But then conversely, you have Elizabeth Banks with all her like shit. And I
She's,
was
like,
super into
literally
that because I'm
eating
very
gold
aware.
jewelry. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Oh
like-
my god. With the
The
I
two
loved
things
her
that she
evolving
eats in
look.
this movie are gold jewelry and Krispy Kreme
Krispy
donuts.
Kreme.
Yeah,
Seriously,
yeah.
actually, you'd see Elizabeth Banks like eating both of those things, and you're just like,
I
okay.
kept waiting for the moment where I got sick of the Krispy Kreme joke, but every time she said
No,
Krispy
I got
Kreme,
donuts
I
after.
laughed.
I'm not gonna lie. I didn't get Krispy Kreme because Duncan is closer to me, and I regret nothing. But no, but Elizabeth Banks, like, she starts off and she's like Enchantress from Suicide Squad, where she's all dirty and gross. And then, like, steadily through the film, she gets, like, sexier, but also still super weird, where I'm sure that there will be, like, young men and women whose sexualities will be awkwardly forged on this performance that, like, 10 years from now, No, I guarantee you, Angie's giving me a side eye, but I guarantee you it's gonna be one of those things where, like, years from now at bars, like, kids are gonna be like, well, my first super weird crush was Rita Repulsa from the Power Rangers movie. Because it's like, it's not sexually explicit or anything, but she's got this weird swagger. I really enjoyed just the sheer camp of it. And the scene where she's just eating a Krispy Kreme donut, like, there I was like, all right, movie. Well done.
Yeah.
The product, the Krispy Kreme product placement in this movie is so obnoxious that it actually weirdly comes all the way back
Yeah,
around
it
to being
comes
like endearing. I just started like it just became one of my favorite things about the movie is how much they're just like Krispy Kreme paid us a lot of money for this,
We're
and
gonna
we are
say
going
their
to give
name.
them their money's worth and then
Everybody's gonna
some.
say it.
Like they live in a town where every other establishment you see has the most generic name, like Daily News, Marine Garage, Krispy Kreme, and there's like shot after shot where people are like standing in front of the Krispy Kreme, so you see the sign behind them. You're like,
Yeah.
you go inside the Krispy Kreme, and for plot reasons, there's no reason it has this like big set has to be a donut shop. They
Yep.
just decided like Krispy Kreme gave them money, and they were like, sure, now it's a donut
Yeah,
shop.
fine.
Why the fuck not?
Totally.
I loved Elizabeth Banks. I also really liked Bryan Cranston. I think he did a great job with what is basically just like a CG digital face performance because
Well, you know why, right?
what do you mean?
Why Bryan Cranston did this movie?
Why does
Because he
he
was
do
in the
this
original?
movie?
Because he did voice work in the original
Oh
series.
yeah, that's why the Blue Ranger is named Billy Cranston too. It's like it's all a throwback to that.
Oh, that's funny. I caught the Cranston thing, but I didn't know if that was a coincidence because, like, I don't know what Billy's last name was.
Yeah. Well, he did a great job, and I actually really liked Alpha 5 too, which is probably one of the most drastic shifts from the original. But I think it worked really well, and I really like what they did with those two characters where, Zordon was super hard on them, and Alpha 5 felt like almost like more of a guidance counselor, like a safe spot for them. I think I needed that balance, and that balance was really different and unique, and it worked in that world. But with only 3 minutes left, I kind of want to touch on a few spoilery things. They're nothing crazy except for, obviously what's to come in the future, but just to touch on a couple spoilers. Here we go. If you haven't seen Power Rangers and you don't want anything spoiled for you, tune out now. I think clearly we all do like it to varying degrees.
Yeah.
So you guys touched on it before. One of my favorite things about this movie is that going into this, all I wanted to see was the suits in action, the Zords in action. I wanted to see the modern version of what I love so much, and I wanted to see it for most of the movie. They don't morph until like the third act, and that was one of the greatest things because they earned it. And then when they earn it and they morph, and then that music cue comes in, oh my God, it was just chilling when you finally see them all together looking like that. I thought that was perfectly timed and so well done. And the Zords in this look fantastic because every single time I kept seeing them in the promo material and they looked they looked almost like too obscure, where I kind of couldn't make out what dinosaur or animal they were. But when they're fighting in that battle at the end, one really cool thing that we don't really get in the original series that this movie does is most of the time you kind of just see them all charging and then they form Megazords super quick and they fight the big monster. There's so much in the third act where you see them all fighting and working together individually. And then when they fall into that pit and they all become Megazord together, but not because Zordon was like, and here's what your Zords can do next. It was because they were working together and as a team.
Yeah.
It's just
It's a nice metaphor.
those story beats and those important Power Ranger beats were working so well for me throughout this entire movie just because they were working well on a character level. And it just goes to show you could do super silly, stupid shit with superhero movies. As long as you like the characters, it's going to work. And I feel like that's why this movie is going to hit another level. You're going to get repeat viewings, and hopefully this thing will actually spark that franchise that Lionsgate is planning.
Yeah, I mean, one of the, because, earlier I was talking about how this movie really, earns the bonds between these main characters in a way that so many of these big, we gotta get a big gang of heroes together thing doesn't. And so one of the biggest emotional beats in the movie comes, I think, maybe, 2/3 of the way through the movie, they kill off the Blue Ranger, and it's actually, really upsetting. And because by that point you've already bought so much into, how much these kids care about each other, it actually does feel earned that, how devastated they are, and, when they all start to step up and be like, I would give my life to bring him back and stuff, I actually, I'm not like Perri as into Power Rangers as Perri is, so I didn't get start crying, but I was like, that's actually really well played. But I have to say, when I watched it, I saw it at a press screening, but some people brought their kids, and this one kid in the theater just started scream crying.
Oh no!
Oh my!
So because when the Blue Ranger died, the kid was so upset. He started
it's very emotional.
It was his get down on his knees and yell no at the heavens moment for this kid. It was
man.
I kind of laughed even though I felt bad about it.
I love this movie to death, but obviously, it's not perfect. And a couple of my biggest issues with it were certain scenes felt like they ended too abruptly, and there were a couple plot holes. So one of the things that I almost couldn't get over was why she let the other four go.
Yeah,
She's
no,
just
it makes
you
no
guys.
sense.
But then I quickly forgot about it. One, because of the pacing, and also because what came after was so effective on an emotional level. The only other little scene nitpick I have is the one where Rita is in Trini's bedroom and they're fighting. Because I think I needed to see Rita leave. It was almost like it was missing the end of that scene. And it's a very similar thing where it's oh, I'm just going to peace out and let you carry on, I think I needed endings to those moments. But I mean, I just freaking love this movie so much. And then, of course, if you've read anything about Power Rangers online, you know that there was a mid-credits tag. And even though it was pretty much the most predictable tag that ever could be made in the history of end credit tags that are going to tease a sequel, it's just after having so much freaking fun in this movie, knowing what's coming next, that we're going to get a Green Ranger, makes me so excited. I just can't wait to see where they take this next.
All right.
You guys are not as excited about the end credit thing.
I think there's nothing else to say.
Yeah.
I think if, I can't imagine if you're an adult who wasn't into Power Rangers, you'd go see this movie, but I think people with kids will be excited. I think people who were into it will be excited. So I think, all around it's done a pretty solid job.
Angie, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, no, I can.
Yeah. Just super briefly, I swear. This was it's going to wind up being one of my favorite movies just because I think this was probably just the happiest I've felt in a theater in a very long time. And, I love Logan to death, but I just mean fucking joyful. I had a big smile on my face. I couldn't help but to clap so many times. It's just those kinds of feelings are very hard to come by. So I am just so happy that Lionsgate and Dean Israelite and this whole crew pulled it off, because when you have something that is so important to someone in their childhood and you do it justice, it doesn't happen very often, and when it does happen, it is so special. So this movie is going to wind up being a favorite of the year. There's pretty much no doubt in my mind right now, and I'm going to see it a whole bunch of times before it comes out on Blu-ray, and then I'm going to abuse Blu-ray. On that note, that's it. That's all the time we've got for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. You know what to do. We have iTunes where you can rate, comment, and subscribe. We have our website, popcornprosecco.com. You can catch us on Twitter at popcornprosecco. And then please go and like us on Facebook as well. Then all three of us are all over the internet. Kristy, do you want to take it first?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Kristy Puchko. That's KristyPuchko. And I write all over the web. You can find my career highlights at decadentcriminals.com and listen to me on It's Eric Nagel every Saturday night on Sirius XM. Details about that are on my social media.
And Angie?
You can find me on Twitter at AJHAN, and I write for Mashable, and I actually did write about the Power Rangers and the power of friendship, so look for that.
Aw. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nemiroff, and I'm on the Collider Videos YouTube channel where you can see a full behind-the-scenes episode of my entire night at the Power Rangers premiere, which was pretty much one of the greatest nights ever. That's it. That's all we've got. Thank you guys again for listening, and we will see you next week.